Welcome to Amatech Chandler Engineering's How-To video series. My name is Scott Vermeer. Today we're going to go through the procedure to replace the return cables on your QX series pumps. All QX series pumps will use the exact same procedure regardless of model or vintage. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's get our tools together before we start. We're going to need a pair of fuzzy sticks. These sticks are a pair of special tools that you can get from Chandler Engineering, a screwdriver, a small flat-bladed screwdriver, a set of Allen wrenches in metric sizes, and then of course our return cables themselves. Now let's get our personal protection equipment together. Safety glasses, gloves, and a lab jacket. Check with your facilities manager to make sure that additional equipment is not required. It's beneficial to be able to pull the piston down to its fully retracted positions before we start this procedure. However, in some cases, the piston will be extended. We will go through the procedure to manually pop the brake pin and release that piston carriage so that we can replace this return cable. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the cases from the pump. Depending upon the vintage of your pump, there will either be 6 screws on each case half or 4 screws that hold a clamshell front case together. In the event that you need to release the brake pin in order to push the piston carriage down to the bottom, we need to take our small flat-bladed screwdriver, and back here at the back side of the gearbox you'll find a little spring. If you push that spring up, you'll see a small slot. So we're going to put our screwdriver into that slot to pull the brake pin up and out of the gearbox. Lift the brake pin. You may need to put a little bit of pressure on the piston carriage to push it down to its bottom position. And then release the brake pin. To remove the valve package, we will use a number 3 Allen wrench and remove these 4 screws from the top of the valve package. If you have top-mounted transducers like this pump does, simply let the transducers hang to the back side of the pump. Grab a hold of the valve package, lift up from the front, and rotate to the rear. You will find a cable connection and an air connection, and we will simply pull these tabs to release the cable, and then we will push this blue tab to release the air line. Set the valve package to the side. With the valve package removed, now we're going to remove the piston bracket so that we may push that piston up into the cylinder. Using a number 4 Allen wrench, we will take out these 2 cap screws. Then simply pull the bracket to release the piston. Using a paper towel at the top of the cylinder to catch any water or fluid that comes out, push the piston up into the cylinder all the way until it meets the cylinder. Now we're ready to put the pump on its rear case. Take our pressure transducers and stick them in the slot in the top of the pump. Rotate the pump to the front of the bench and lay it on its back so that the bottom case is hanging over the front lip of the bench.
Note the last 4 screws we take out have a round Phillips head. We'll want to put these screws back in its exact same location when we go to reassemble the case bottom.
And then pull the bottom case and just let it hang on its cable. Now we're going to release the tension off of the spring and off of the belt. First, remove the belt tension arm and allow it to sit back on the back side of the frame. Then grab the belt at the stitching and pull it up and off the post. You will feel a little tension from the spring as the belt releases. Take the belt out from the bottom pulley and lay it across the top of the pump and pull the pump back around so that it's in the front position. Now we're ready to remove our return cable, and this is where we are going to use our foozy stick tools. We will insert the foozy stick into the holes of the foozy pulley, and we will begin to extend the spring to loosen the tension on our return cable. Do not be afraid to bring that spring very close to the bottom of its travel. And then insert a stick and allow that stick to hold the tension of the spring. Now that our spring is extended, we're going to pull the piston carriage up slightly so that we have access to the string on the back side. We're going to push that string forward until the knot and bead come out of the piston carriage. There is a keyhole in the piston carriage that we will slide the bead through and pull it out. Now swing the pump back to its forward position. Note that our belt also fell off of the bottom side of the pulley. We're simply going to take it and remove it to the side, leave that loop in place. And I'm going to remove that string and let it hang. Now we want to release the tension that's on that spring. So we'll go back to our foozy sticks and slowly unwind our spring until it's completely off tension. And then we can pull the sticks out. Now, push that piston carriage all the way to the top of its travel and unwind the string from the foozy. The string also has a bead and a key on the spring side of the pump, so we'll need to remove that. In many cases, it's easiest to use a small screwdriver to push that bead out of the hole and into the key. Push that piston carriage out of the way if you need to. And rotate that string until it comes out. So a couple of notes about our new return cable. You will see that there are 3 beads placed on the cable, one on each end and one that is not exactly equidistant in the center. This bead will fit into our fusee pulley in a slot that I'll be showing you shortly. There are 2 plastic washers on one end of the string. Make sure that this end of the return cable will go to our spring side. This will go into the fusee, and this will wrap itself around and go into our piston holder. Last thing to note about our return cables is that note that the old return cable is in fact longer than the new one. They will stretch with time, and this is perfectly normal. So do not be concerned if your old cable is significantly longer or if the beads are not placed exactly in the same position. Now we're ready to install our new return cable. I'm going to take the end of the return cable that has the 2 plastic washers, and I'm going to thread it underneath, in between the fusee pulley and its bracket, and pull that cable through. And then I'm going to push this cable into the keyway such that the knotted ends are flat to the keyway. Push it in, pull it into the slot, and give it just a gentle tug to seat it into place. We'll pull the cable back through and rotate our pump back to the forward position. Now I'm going to push the piston carriage back up into the middle position here so I have some room. And recall that when we took the return cable off, that there was a slot that this center bead is going to fit into. We will mount this bead into the slot such that the knotted end, the string end, is to the outside. And then we will begin to wrap the return cable around the fusee from the outside in. Make sure the cable is going into the slots. And we will wrap it 3 full turns around the fusee pulley. Note that with the spring completely contracted, that our string cannot reach up to our pulley casting. That's normal. We're going to use our fusee sticks now to release some of this string from the fusee. Give that return cable a gentle tug to keep it in its channels as we extend that spring. And again, don't be afraid to pull that spring, extend that spring down a fair distance. and allow that foozy stick to pin itself again on the case of the pump. Now we have enough cable to come up and over and through the pulley casting. Going to pull our piston carriage down and insert the string into one of the keyholes, pulling it through all the way so that the plastic washer is with it, and then mount it into its center hole. Give it a little push and it is in place.
Make sure that our string is in the slot of the bottom casting pulley, and then use your foozy sticks to allow the spring to put tension back onto the return cable.
We know that we've now assembled our return cable onto the pump correctly because there is still some tension left on the spring while our piston carriage is tightly sitting on the pulley casting itself. Next, we're going to put the belt back on to the pulleys. Make sure that the belt sits flat on the pulleys, both top and bottom. And then we are going to stretch this belt back to its mounting post. Hold on to the belt at the stitching, making sure that we have a good loop at the end of the belt. Hold the top of the pump and pull. You will feel some tension from that spring as we get that belt mounted on those pulleys. Make sure that the belt is sitting in the pulley grooves. And last, put our belt tension arm back onto the belt position. So now that we've replaced the cable on this side of the pump and we've got our belt and our belt tension arm all back into place, we do want to make sure that we do the second side, the other cylinder, as well. Always replace your return cables in pairs. Now, we're going to reassemble the bottom of the pump again. I typically use one of the flat Phillips screws in a center hole to get it started. And hold the bottom case in place. Do not recommend using an electric drill or an electric screwdriver to put these screws back in, as it is very easy to strip the screws out. Next, recall that there were 4 round Phillips head screws that go in these 4 locations to hold the case and the pulley castings together. Pick the pump up now and put it back on its feet. Now it's time to install the valve package back onto your pump. Recall that we need to connect our air line and our electrical cable. and then simply push on the cable and it will automatically lock itself in place. Now connect the air tube by simply pushing it in to the port. Slide the valve package into its mounting hole and line up those screw holes to the cylinders as best as you possibly can. Now we'll connect our pressure transducers. We may have to wiggle this around a little bit to get all of our holes lined up. Tighten them up firmly. And the valve package is now reassembled to the top of your pump. Assembly of the other side is identical to that, and your pump is now ready for operations. Thank you for watching Amatec Chandler Engineering's how-to video on return cable replacement. If you have any questions about this procedure, please contact us via the link below. Thanks for your time.